Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3765. Today's date is December 18, 2025. It's been almost like afternoon at 1:40 p.m. First of all, why am I actually recording Artifact in the afternoon? It's because of that I just had my lunch and it was a very heavy lunch. And I don't want to sit in front of my desk after I ate my lunch. I need a kind of like a simply walk. So that's why I'm kind of like came here to Rooftop. And yeah, instead of kind of like simply spending half an hour to doing something nonsense stuff, what if I could start and record Artifact? So that's why I'm kind of like a recording Artifact. Alright, so should we jump into the question? Let's go. Alright, the question is, what if gravity only affect certain object? Oh, that's a really good question. Alright, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like a force you to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality, or when I try to create that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and information and experience that I've been through. And somehow when I try to utilizing this knowledge and information, it felt good. It felt kind of like a knowledgeable. I don't know why, but it felt good. Alright. Disclaimer. The information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's a raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Now regarding about the question says that what if gravity only affect the certain object? Alright, first of all, let's just understand the gravity first. Okay, then we understand the question. A gravity is a gravity, a kind of like a things that you are kind of like a feeling right now. Okay, yeah, like you are walking or you are kind of like whatever you are doing, it affects on gravity. Okay, yeah, you are kind of like a walking is because of the gravity. You are kind of like a running is because of the gravity. You are flying is also happen because of the gravity. Okay, yeah, like how do you flying? Like imagine this thing. What if you are kind of like a listening this artifact on the plane? So might be you are also flying. So yeah, so basically everything around here or everything around you is kind of like assembly happen or existence is because of the gravity. And gravity is a kind of like assembly a universal thing. Okay, yeah, a universal thing. It's actually available everywhere, not only on our planet. It actually exists in everywhere. Sun, moon, earth, Mars, Jupiter, solar system, entire galaxy, multi-galaxy, entire universe is actually available. Okay, so gravity is very much essential thing. Now just try to imagine that what if we are not having the gravity. Okay, yeah, basically this thing our human mind are not able to imagine that particular stuff, because our mind is always meant to be kind of like assembly imagine the things that we are capable to see. Example is this thing that ki moon has a kind of like a little less gravity than us. Okay, yeah. So the people who are kind of like a walking in the moon, they are kind of like they are not walking, they are jumping. They are kind of like a jumping from one to after a kind of like a couple of feet further. Okay, yeah. Why? Because of the gravity of the moon is far lesser than us. Okay, yeah. Now when we try to look at that, it kind of like a little bit fun, right? Like kind of like a feel that having little less weight. And when we have kind of like a having little less weight, you are kind of like a feel that what if there is no gravity at all? So you just kind of like imagine that what if there is no gravity at all? So then might be this like a really good, like probably you will gonna start flying probably. Yeah, you just kind of like somebody just hold something and you just kind of like a went further and things like that. It was like a so cool to things happen. Like you just kind of like a meet your friend kind of like in the mid air or things and that, right? Or like basically when there is a no gravity, then probably entire mountain would kind of like a fly, like a avatar in the avatar movie. The entire mountains are kind of like a flying is is might be kind of like really cool, like basically it just fly. Okay, yeah. Or like there is a kind of like a swimming pool is not in the swimming pool. They are kind of like a pool in the mid air, like basically there is a kind of like a bulb of water that you can go and you can able to swim, because probably you cannot able to do swimming because it's not gonna possible to do swim in without gravity. It's not gonna possible. But yeah, you might gonna go into that kind of like a water bulb and things like that, which kind of like look really cool. Okay, yeah. uh your cars, you cannot able to drive the car because yeah, drive you cannot able to drive the car, so probably you need a kind of like assembly thruster engine, so that it kind of like a push further. A thruster engine is actually available in a kind of like a jet planes or kind of like assembly in aeroplane. Okay, we need that kind of like a thruster engine, so we need that push further and things like that. IC engine does not even work. Okay, yeah. So when you try to imagine that particular reality, it's like, wow, it's kind of like something that, wow, it's really good, it's really great. Okay, right. But in reality, it's not. It's the real, definitely not. Okay, yeah. Why is that? Why, like, let's just imagine, let's just kind of like simply imagine a kind of like simply, let's just take a thought experiment regarding about that. Ki what if for let's just say a 2 minute, okay, let's just say 2 minute, the gravity is actually turn off in the entire universe. Okay, just imagine. So I'm not really sure about the entire universe. Let's talk about the planet. Okay, yeah. What if there is a kind of like assembly happen that gravity is kind of like assembly gone for 2 minutes in the planet Earth? Then what will gonna happen? Okay, yeah. So first of all is that he the air that we breathe. Okay, yeah. The air that we breathe are kind of like assembly stay at the surface is because of the gravity. Because why? Because the air that we are kind of like a feeling and things like that, it also has its own kind of like a weight, and because of it has a weight, it kind of like assembly stays at the surface and things like that, because the gravity is act upon the air too. Okay, yeah. That's why it's kind of like assembly air, and because of the air that we could able to breathe. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing, we cannot breathe directly oxygen. Like we can breathe directly oxygen, it's not really that, but we need a kind of like a breathe mixture of oxygen plus multiples of gases and things like that. But air is a kind of like a became a medium. Okay, yeah. Air is a kind of like a became a medium, that's why we could breathe the oxygen and things like that. Okay, yeah. The pure form of oxygen is cannot able to be breathe. I don't know how, it's kind of like it's very hard to describe and things like that. Okay, yeah. But whatever, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that the air is actually happen is because actually stays at the surface is because of the gravity. Now if there is no gravity, then probably is this thing, the air will be gone. Okay, air will be gone in the kind of like a things that give on the space. Okay, yeah. But how is that air will gonna gone? Okay, let me tell you the perspective, let me tell you things. Okay, yeah. Our earth is a ball, right? Our earth is a sphere. Okay, sphere is a kind of like very geometrical shape that might not people understand. Earth is a ball. A ball is a kind of like a thing that everyone understand. A ball. Okay, yeah. Now our ball is rotate in our own axis. Okay, yeah. A ball is kind of like a rotate in own axis. Okay. So what is actually happen when the ball is actually rotate around its own axis? Take an example. What should you supposed to do? Do you have a tennis ball? Okay, yeah, take a tennis ball and kind of like a somebody, you just rotate, like you first of all kind of like a make that tennis ball wet. Okay, drown into the water and things like that. Make sure that tennis ball kind of like a become wet. And what you have to do is that jump that ball as well as kind of like a rotate. Yeah, it's kind of like a very easy thing. It's not really that hard. It just kind of like a rotate with the jump. Like you have to apply both the motion at the same time. Kind of like a make him jump and make him rotate. Okay, yeah. So when things happen, what exactly happened? That tennis ball look very really good. Okay, yeah. Really good means what? Like basically you just kind of like see that the ball is kind of like a rotate in its own axis, because you kind of like give them a momentum to kind of like a rotate on its axis. And when this actually happened, the entire water sprinkle is kind of like a moving away from this thing. Okay, yeah, and it looks like a really beautiful in own way. Okay, yeah. Now, why these things actually happen is because of that we have kind of like a two different forces are actually acted upon it. Okay, yeah. Now you actually did this example, you actually did this experiment. Now let's take another example. Okay, yeah. For better understanding. Okay, yeah. What you have to do is that take a kind of like a assembly bucket or a glass, or let's take a bucket. Okay, a glass would be kind of like very difficult to do this thing. What you have to do is that take a bucket. Okay, bucket has its own handle. Make sure that handle kind of like a knot with a kind of like a assembly rope or things like that. Put that water inside that particular bucket. Okay, not full, do not fill the entire water by the bucket, just fill half of it, and so that you would carry the weight, at least carry that entire bucket with this thing. Now what you have to do is that take that bucket and try to rotate around yourself in midair. Okay, yeah, you have to try to do this thing. Now there are a couple of things that actually happen when you are trying to do this thing. Okay, first of all is that the bucket does not go away, or like a bucket is kind of like a rotate around you. Okay, yeah. Now bucket is actually rotate around you. This is kind of like a somebody, let's just say a air. Okay, imagine that bucket is a air and it kind of like a rotate around you. Now what that bucket is kind of like a somebody holding, like basically the bucket wanted to go away, buckets wanted to go away, but it cannot go away because of that key you are kind of like pulling that bucket from your kind of like assembly, that rope and things like that. And this is the gravity, that you are holding that bucket through a rope. That is kind of like assembly gravity. That's why that bucket does not go away, right? So this is what kind of like a gravity acted upon that. So in this particular reality, okay, the bucket act like a air, and the string that you are kind of like holding, it act like a gravity. Okay, it act like a gravity. Okay, now you kind of like imagine this thing. Now what you have to do is that you just have to release that bucket, you just have to release that kind of like assembly rope and things like that. Just do this thing and suddenly release. And when you do this thing, you kind of like realize that bucket is actually gone with kind of like a water in it, with the kind of like ropes and things like that. And this is what actually happened when you kind of like simply remove the gravity. Okay, when you remove the gravity, it kind of like remove the gases and things and everything away from this thing. And why this actually happened is because of that key, there is a kind of like a momentum is actually like the gravity is a kind of like a holding that momentum, and suddenly when you lose it, that momentum is actually gone, and it like sorry, that momentum is not gone, the kind of like the things that kind of like holding the momentum is actually gone. And because of the kind of like assembly like there is a kind of like assembly a kind of like a force called centripetal force or centrifugal force, I'm not really sure about that, but it's kind of like acted upon that. Okay, so that's why it's actually bucket is actually gone away. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to as simplify as possible as it can. Okay, yeah. So when there is no bucket, means there is no air. So basically without air, how do we supposed to survive? Okay, we instantly will gonna not. Okay, yeah. Now I'm just talk about just the air. Okay, just the air. But let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah. As I mentioned, our earth is a kind of like a ball. Okay, yeah. Now basically as I mentioned that key earth is also kind of like simply connected by us by kind of like simply forcing acted upon us and things like that. It kind of like simply we are kind of like a connected by kind of like a some sort of rope that kind of like a connect with the earth. Okay, yeah. Now suddenly that rope is actually cut down, so everything is actually flying, everything is actually flying, like you are flying, your home, car, mountain, the water, everything is actually flying. Now flying is a kind of like a makes sense, but because of the our ball is actually rotating now, our earth is kind of like a rotating in its own axis. So when it's actually rotating on own axis, we are also rotating with that earth too, because the earth is kind of like a tidally locked with each other and tidally locked with, yeah, so that's why we are, yeah, suddenly there is a kind of like a no gravity at all. We just kind of like a throw, or we just kind of like a throw away from this ball, like the bucket that actually kind of like somebody, yeah. So this actually happened that we just kind of like a throw away from our planet earth. Suddenly this actually happened when there is no gravity, suddenly we are just started flying around the space and things like that. And this is what gonna happen. Okay, yeah. And when this thing actually happened, then probably first of all we might not gonna survive. That's the one thing, obviously. Another thing is that na ki everything will gonna kind of like a gone, like there is nothing really at, like there is no ocean, there is no mountain, there is nothing really at all, just everything will gonna gone and things like that. Might be little bit of tectonic plate will gonna stick with that, but not in that particular, like basically what I'm trying to tell you, the entire earth will gonna collapse. Like basically is this thing na, it's a, what I'm trying to tell you, the gravity is not a kind of like a something, the force, it's a kind of like a something, a something that holding us together. Okay, yeah, something and it holding us together. When you are kind of like a remove that thing, it just remove everything. Like you are not just kind of like a throw into the space, your entire earth is kind of like a shackle and things like that. Like your core is kind of like a somebody, just your tectonic plate is also gone, everything will gonna gone, it just everything will gonna gone. It's nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key, if like it's kind of like it's really very fun to imagine that when there is kind of like a little less gravity or not having the gravity would be kind of like a really cool to kind of like some things, and that we could fly like a astronaut could kind of like a fly like in the International Space Station and things like that. But in reality it's very like a very brutal. Okay, yeah, very brutal. That it's very brutal in its own kind. It's not. Okay, yeah. All right. So do you understand what if the lack of gravity, what it actually happened now? And basically is this thing now, the thought process that I kind of like actually mention, or kind of like I tell, it's not kind of like a somebody that much brutal. Okay, yeah. In reality it would become even more brutal, because I didn't really know a lot of things will gonna happen, like a basically cores will gonna shatter, the earthquake, the mountain, or maybe we're gonna like it's lot of things will gonna happen at the same time. So it's just like a, yeah. But dude, there is a one thing that I wanted to mention. The everything is actually happen is because of that the earth is actually rotating, na? Like our ball is actually rotating, right? So because of our earth is kind of like rotating, that's why there is a kind of like somebody, everything will gonna go on and things like that. What if we would stop rotating our planet? Okay, yeah, like basically what if we could stop rotating our planet and kind of like simply remove the gravity, then we will gonna stick together, na? Like basically is this in the same thing, is this thing that we will not kind of like rotate the bucket, but we just turn off the gravity. So the bucket will gonna fly, but it will not kind of like a throw away, right? Like do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? Yeah, it's a kind of like simply a merry-go-round. Okay, yeah, but merry-go-round is a kind of like a turn off. Okay, like it's not kind of like a rotate around itself, it's just kind of like a turn off. But and also the kind of like there is no kind of like no gravity, so there is no like a kind of like a rope to kind of like connect the horse and things that. So we just might be in the merry-go-round, na? Okay, yeah, it's not turn on, right? Well, it's not that kind of like assembly as easy as you think it is. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Even if we are stop kind of like our earth to kind of like a stop rotating, um it it rotate. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing. Okay, yeah, the earth, yeah, it's rotate around its own axis, as well as earth is actually rotate around the sun too. Okay, yeah. So if you wanted to stop the rotation of the earth, if then you have to stop the rotation of the around the sun, like earth is actually rotated around the sun, so you have to stop that thing first. Okay, yeah. Now if you wanted to stop that thing, then probably it's not happened, because of that ki our entire solar system, like our sun is also rotate around the kind of like something Sagittarius A. Sagittarius A is a kind of like a something a black hole is actually available in the center of our galaxy. Okay, yeah, Milky Way galaxy. Okay, yeah. So I'm not really sure it kind of like a rotate around the Sagittarius A black hole, but it kind of like a kind of like a doing up something really a kind of like a have motion. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that now everything that you are seeing on the astronomical things like the sun and earth and solar system and everything is actually moving. Okay, yeah. So if you wanted to stop, then you have to stop this. it kind of like a connect with this thing. So you have to stop that, then you have to stop that, and then you have to stop that, and then you stop that and stop that. It's not, yeah. So you if you wanted to stop the rotation of the earth, you cannot, because you have to stop the multiple things. You have to stop the rotation of the earth around the sun, then you have to stop the sun, then you have to stop the kind of like assembly the sun rotate around the Sagittarius A, then you have to, if you want to stop the Sagittarius A, then you have to stop the entire galaxy, then you have to stop the entire galaxy, then galaxy is also kind of like assembly doing expanding in its own direction and things like that, so you have to stop that thing too. And if you want to stop that thing, then if you want to stop the kind of like entire universe of expanding and things like that, it's like fucking things actually happen. Okay, yeah, you have to stop the, you cannot able to stop the one thing, you just have to stop so many things, you just have to stop so many things. And yeah, and this like that, it's a like basically it's a kind of like we are a part of kind of like assembly a kind of like a connection of with a it's a very hard to explain. I am not a kind of like a physicist. Okay, but yeah, this is what it is. We are kind of like connected from so many ways and things like that. It's just we cannot do that thing. We cannot stop that thing. Okay, yeah. But take a hypothetical scenario. Okay, yeah. Like basically, what if like our mind is kind of like something we could imagine and things like that. So let's just imagine. Okay, let's just imagine that we stop our Earth rotating. Okay, yeah. And then we remove the gravity. Okay, then we remove the gravity. Then what will gonna happen? So can we able to kind of like a throw away? Well, yeah, it will be. Okay, yeah, because even if we stop, we are also kind of like a bounded, connected with the kind of like a some sun. So we are also rotate around the sun. So somehow, it's a kind of like a thing is that na ki you are. It's like I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. It's a very hard to explain. Like let me tell you one thing now. Imagine that a kind of like an octopus. Okay, let's imagine an octopus. Octopus is kind of like a really good thing. Okay, so imagine an octopus. Okay, yeah, octopus has 8 tentacles. Okay, yeah, because it called octopus. Okay, yeah, and it kind of like a holding everything. Like it kind of like somebody holding us. Like let's just say, like an octopus is kind of like a holding 8 people. Okay, yeah, and the octopus is actually rotating. Okay, yeah. Now, what exactly happened? That tentacle of the octopus are kind of like a gravity, right? And now it's kind of like a stop the octopus and things like that, because we stop the rotation, and we also kind of like a remove the tentacles and things like that. So there is no octopus, things like that. Okay, yeah, but I don't know. This example is completely irrelevant. I don't know why I kind of like mention this thing, but it's something that na ki it's a very kind of like a things that ki like it's not possible in, I don't know how do I supposed to explain. It's a very thing that na it's a very how do I supposed to explain it? It's just like that na ki when there is no gravity at all, there is no earth at all. Okay, yeah, like literally just like that na, even if we kind of like stop the spinning, and if we're gonna say that thing ki we just have to remove the gravity, then it just, when we remove the gravity, everything will kind of flow. Everything everything's gone. Everything is actually gone. There is nothing really at all. Like basically, like there is no earth to kind of like a left to kind of like a say this thing that we would supposed to be kind of like a simply face the like a little less gravity in the, it's not like a, it's not, it is, it's yeah, it's sometimes now you just, I don't know, like at this moment I don't really have that much information regarding about that particular scenario, that regarding about what if the gravity would gonna go on and things like that. I don't really have that much information, but the one thing for sure is that we will not gonna survive, we will not gonna exist if there is no earth at all, if there is kind of like a remove the gravity, because gravity is somewhat something really essential element for creating this universe and things like that. And if there is no gravity, there is nothing. There is nothing really at all. We cannot able to live without gravity. It is very, very essential force that we have. All right. So yeah, but dude, the question was not mentioned about that. The question says that what if the gravity is actually affect on certain object, like basically some certain thing that we could hold, some certain thing we cannot able to hold. So what if like a basically is this thing that ki a gravity would be bias. Okay, like a bias means what? Like a basically I am actually kind of like a simply facing 9.8 gravity. The my friend is kind of like a facing, let's just say 9.2% gravity, or maybe kind of like something 6% gravity or things like that. So like basically if the gravity would be bias, yeah, like like a basically the gravity is kind of like simply equally around in everywhere, like every like a you, me, air, water, kind of like assembly, we are acted kind of like the same 9.8, right? But a kind of like assembly gravity would be bias at some certain thing. So when it gonna happen, then probably I don't know. When I try to imagine this particular context, then it's a very hard to determine that how that bias systems actually happen. Like how the kind of like somebody gravity would gonna determine that key, like okay, like your friend is kind of like somebody doing something really wrong thing in his life. So probably I have to give them like a too much amount of gravity so that he would crush himself with his own weight and things like that. So probably here I'm gonna give them almost like a 10 out of like a 10.2. What's the unit of gravity? Meter per second square? No. What's a wait? What's the gravity? Let me Google it. What is the unit of gravity? Okay, meter per second square. Yeah, meter per second square. Yeah, meter per second square. So basically, I'm getting almost like a 9.8 meter per second square. My friend get almost like maybe 6.2 meter per second square, or maybe kind of like a 1 meter per second square, or maybe kind of like a something like 1,000 meter per second square. Because of that, he's kind of like did something really wrong. So gravity acted upon so much so that he would kind of like crush by him, crushed by in its own weight or things like that probably. Okay, like basically what if the gravity would kind of like bias in its own way. Like when these things actually happen, then yeah, this might be a kind of like assembly way that probably, yeah. But first of all, let's just like it's not gonna happen in reality. Gravity does not kind of like somebody bias and things like that. But still, just kind of like imagine that particular context, that what if kind of like only one person killed that particular person, then the gravity is kind of like somebody the mother nature, and probably he would decide that no, it's I don't know. But yeah, this would be a kind of like some things would gonna happen. I don't know. Like basically, when I try to imagine that particular stuff, then it would become a little bit of frictionalized things. Okay, yeah, and it also kind of like a take times and a lot of stuff and things like that. Whatever. But this is what I thought regarding about this particular scenario and stuff like that. All right, this is it. I should supposed to be end here, and thank you.